Hi, my name's Amanda and I'm a type 1 diabetic and this is my diabetes story. Hi everybody, I'm back. I wanted to share a little story with you, some story time. I wanted to share my diagnosis story. I know that maybe like a couple of my family members know about what it was like when I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. Some of my family members were there with me. Um, some of my friends had maybe even told about it. It's not actually a story I tell very often, so I thought I'd go ahead and vlog it. Um, it's not anything super glamorous or even like super traumatic. It's just kind of like it was what it was. So, I have a family history of diabetes. There's an aunt on my mom's side and an uncle on my dad's side. They've both passed away for many years now. I don't believe either of them lived past the age of 30, and I'm going to be 31 this summer, so that's kind of exciting. I, as a young child, was never really overweight, and I didn't have any like super poor eating habits. I was pretty typical. My parents actually always thought that my younger sister was going to be the one to get diabetes because she had always been a bit more overweight and had really strange eating habits. As I grew older, around the age of 7, I was diagnosed with JRA, which is juvenile rheumatoid arthritis. I woke up one morning and wasn't able to tie my shoes because my hands hurt so bad. JRA is an autoimmune disease, just like type 1 diabetes is. So I have two autoimmune diseases. They usually come in pairs or more. It's not atypical to have more than one autoimmune disease. My grandmother was really supportive of when I was diagnosed with arthritis and would take me to doctor's appointments and buy me wrist and ankle braces and made sure that I was comfortable. So that's a really sweet memory I have of my grandma and just how supportive she was at the time of my JRA diagnosis. A few years later, maybe when I was 8 or 9, I noticed as I was brushing my teeth one morning that my bite was really crooked. And I mentioned it to my mom, so she took me to see an ortho. And after a few more x-rays, I was diagnosed with TMJ, which is tubular mandible joint. You'll notice that my mouth will sometimes go off to the side. This part of my jaw right here and this part of my jaw right here are shorter on this side than they are on this side. So it causes my bite to be really crooked. At one point, I had braces and was going to get a surgery done, but my blood sugars, it was after my diagnosis, my blood sugars weren't in control enough to go under surgery, so it never got done. But at that time, when I was diagnosed with TMJ, the only correction for it is surgery, and they'd basically take a rib bone out and then insert it into my jaw, which was really scary as such a young child to hear that. Fast forward to high school. Throughout most of my upper grade school and junior high school years, I suffered a lot from depression that was undiagnosed. My parents got divorced and there was a really ugly custody battle. Having this crooked jaw, which has definitely just gotten worse as I've gotten older and the rest of my bones grew when my jaw didn't, made me super self-conscious. I also had really bad hormonal acne for a few years that didn't get treated. I ended up getting pretty heavy by the beginning of my sophomore year of high school. And that's kind of when things turned around for me. My mental health got a lot better. I ended up, having my own car and got involved in drama club and started making friends. I had kind of a new freedom that I hadn't had before. But by the end of my sophomore year, I started thinning out, and I didn't really notice it myself. My family noticed it, my friends noticed it. I remember one point I was in the cafeteria or something eating lunch, and one of my friends was like, "Oh, so you're not anorexic?" And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And they're like, "You got really skinny all of a sudden. Like, everyone's kind of worried about you." And I had no idea. I didn't recognize it. So, but who did notice was my grandmother. Of course, she had a son who died from diabetes, and she noticed all my symptoms, losing weight really fast. My hair was falling out. My feet were so rough and cracked. They'd catch on my sheets when I slept at night. I couldn't go an hour or two, even at nighttime, without peeing, and I was thirsty all of the time, constantly. I'd get winded just going up a flight of stairs. And so my parent at the time refused to take me in to the doctor to get tested. He said I was just having a growth spurt or something, but my grandma took me in and got the lab work done, and sure enough, it came back positive. I was at school in English class and got called down to the office, and my parent was there, and he said that my diagnosis came back positive and that we were to go straight to the endocrinologist, which is a diabetes specialist, or a specialist of the endocrine system, that we had to go to his office right away, and that I might end up going to the hospital. So that was kind of a really sober, sombering moment. I knew it. The second I walked out of that doctor's office with my grandma, and he discussed all the symptoms with me. After that, I kind of pretty much knew, but was still kind of clinging, to the hope that it was anything else. But, so we got to the endo's office, and they tested my blood sugar with just like an at-home meter, and it was 568, which is very, 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 very high. Meters for home usually only read to 600, and then they just read high. I've heard of people on the who've been into DKA, which is diabetic ketoacidosis. It's basically when your body starts to become acidic, because the glucose in your bloodstream is so high, and your body can't get rid of it fast enough. That they'd go into the hospital and their blood sugars would be like in the 1,000 ranges. So that is possible. But yeah, 568 is very, very high. So they did the home test in the office and then immediately sent a prescription of insulin to my pharmacy for me. And so we went to the pharmacy, and my aunt, who's like a mom to me, showed up, really upset because it was also her brother that had passed from diabetes, and my grandmother. And there in the bathroom of the Hy-Vee supermarket, I got my first insulin injection in my arm from my aunt. She was actually the one who gave me like my first good handful of injections. Then we went to the little deli that they have there in the supermarket to have lunch, because it was still lunchtime. And like, this is like when the reality set in. I was told to put in my order for lunch, and I couldn't have mashed potatoes with my chicken strips, and I couldn't have mac and cheese or the french fries. Like, I had no idea how to eat low carb. I had no idea what a carbohydrate was. I never read a nutritional fact label on a piece of food in my entire life, unless I was bored and just reading the random ingredients. I didn't know, I was 15 and had just discovered all of this new freedom, and it was being ripped from me, like, in an instant. It was gone. So I was also told that if my A1C didn't get under control, I was 15 at the time, just about to turn 16, that on my 16th birthday I might be denied to get a driver's license. And that was just heartbreaking. Like, my world ended. Um, I'd love to say that things got better from there. I'd love to say that I learned how to be a good diabetic and care for myself and manage my disease. But that's not reality, and that's not my reality. That's not what happened. I rebelled. I skipped shots. I ate when I wanted. I ended up developing an eating disorder called diabulimia. I started purposefully restricting my insulin intake because I was told that it could make me gain weight, and I had just lost all of this weight from being sick. Didn't want to gain it back. I, at the age of 17, was 107 pounds, which to some people might seem normal, but for me and my body type, it was not. I was very small, and you could tell I was very sick and very pale, and my hair was very thin, and I was not okay. At the end of my senior year, I was no longer living with a guardian. I was living on my own with a boyfriend, so I didn't have anyone to hold me accountable or make sure that I was okay. The night before my high school graduation, I was hospitalized for severe dehydration, kidney stones, and a bladder infection. Unfortunately, it would take another 3 hospitalizations for basically the same thing in the next 2 years before I started realizing I'm not only severely hurting my body, but I'm now in large amounts of medical debt at the age of 18. I ended up having to go to court over the amount of debt that I owed. And at the time, was supporting basically myself, making $15,000 a year. I had my own health insurance. I was buying my own insulin. I didn't have any financial support from either of my parents. So that was kind of like rock bottom for me. My health was still not good. I was at least trying, but I wasn't being managed by a doctor. I was kind of just doing it all on my own, and I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't have any proper diabetic education. So, luckily for me, I found a free clinic in town who was able to get me all of my insulin and prescriptions and test strips and lab work and all the stuff at no cost. I found really good friends to take me in and house me and feed me and check in on me and make sure I was okay. I got a better job that paid a little bit more. I was finally starting to gain some of my self-esteem back, and that's when me and my husband started dating. We dated long distance for a few months, and he realized that I was in a lot of trouble at that time and didn't have anyone, to really take care of me, and I needed that. I needed someone to check in on me and make sure that I was okay and make sure that I was eating right and make sure that I was taking my medications. Like, I needed the support and I wasn't getting it. So we ended up moving in together, and he showed more care for me and my condition and made it a priority than anyone else ever had. And I wasn't ever hospitalized for my diabetes ever again. After that day, 10 years ago we've been together. He made my life and my health feel important, and it gave me courage to put myself and my well-being first before anybody else, even our own kids. My health comes first. There's a saying, that they tell you when you get on an airplane. If the oxygen masks drop, you put one on yourself before you put one on somebody else who can't do it. Like, what good are you going to be for anyone else if you can't even take care of yourself? So, he still supports me today in everything I do, and especially making these videos, and he's my rock, and I cherish him. So that's my diagnosis story. To learn more information about type 1 symptoms, type 1 mental health, and type 1 eating disorders like diabulimia, check out the links that I provided below. Thanks for watching and supporting me.